Hi, this is the fellow passenger. Today I would like to talk about the Casio Casiotone MT-240 that I bought at the flea market for £3 last year. The price of a coffee, and it had MIDI, it was working. I thought it's worth giving it a go and to see if it can IDM. So what I will be doing in this video is to make some music using this Casio keyboard as the only sound source, and then use Ableton to modulate and put effects on, etc. But I will perhaps not talk so much about what I'm doing, because you will see what is happening on the screen. And I can talk about all sorts of other things in the meantime. To start with, I would like to say a big thank you to the comments I got for my last video. The tips about distortion and to look into some of the free plugins you get with Melda Productions, which I realized I already had. I have been a big user of the Melda Productions comb filter, but someone suggested to look into the wave shaper, which then also led me to look into the wave folder a bit further, and I think it's exactly what I've been looking for. I will not be using them in this video, but I am sure they're going to be heavily featured in material coming up in the future. Because all of a sudden I found distortion sounding interesting, and it was more about adding interesting harmonics rather than destroying the sound. I would also like to say a big thank you to someone who suggested something along the lines like, why don't you make music with other people rather than just in my own shed? And there is some truth in that, and I would like to unpick it a bit. Since I started this journey putting music online a bit more, which sort of began properly during the big COVID lockdowns, and people started asking me about it, and that has developed into making some connections online, and I have done some very interesting collaborations, and I've also played, in the last couple of years, I've probably played more live gigs than I have done since I started making music. So I have made some music together with people, but only to a degree. The type of music that I enjoy is perhaps doesn't have a mass appreciation, and just to find people locally that are interested in electronic music to start with, then the next step is to find someone who likes electronic music that you're compatible with. It gets pretty narrow and niche, and I would like to make more music together with other people, but not only remotely. I would like to jam a bit more and meet up. I got some people that I know within traveling distance that I'm really going to try to push to do this a bit more. But if you think that the type of music I make is compatible with the music that you're interested in, and if you live in somewhere in East Anglia, maybe Ipswich, Colchester, I'm talking UK now, Ipswich, Colchester, or in London, because that's easy for me to travel to, maybe towards Cambridge, maybe Bury St Edmunds or something, And if you are keen on meeting up and just trying to make something together, maybe we could make it happen. Maybe you can send me a message. I can't promise anything. Send me some stuff that you make, and we can see. Maybe. I'm also one of the organizers of the Colchester EMOM. If you are not familiar with the EMOM movement, that is electronic music open mic, which seems to have quite a what's the word? It feels like it's flourishing in the UK at least. And around here, within 1 hour's travel distance, there are quite a few towns who have those electronic music open mic nights. And that could also potentially be an interesting forum where if we make something together, we might be able to perform it live if we want to. I also got a few other announcements on the live music front. I will be playing live in Brighton on I need to look in my calendar to remind myself of what date it is. Is it the 8th or the 9th of March? Let me see. The 9th, Saturday the 9th of March. And you should go to the More Kicks Than Friends website. There will be a link in the description if you want to book tickets. It's not going to be only me playing. There will be quite a few artists. So if you are into IDM or even a bit more beat driven, maybe a bit of breakcore even, I think you should come down to Brighton and hang out with us and listen to some really exciting music. I think it's going to be an amazing evening. On the More Kicks and Friends note, which if you're not familiar with it, you are, well, I assume you're more likely to have discovered Ned Rush channel before you found mine. But if you haven't, check out Ned Rush. He is doing a lot of amazing YouTube tutorials along similar lines to the stuff that I do. He's been going for much longer. He's super talented. But he's also got this thing going called More Kicks Than Friends, which I think he started during the lockdown as an online electronic music festival. But now we are taking them into the real world. So we had a session in Cardiff last year. The second one will be in Brighton. And it looks like we got a London date in the summer. And we hope there will be more. But that doesn't mean that the online festivals have disappeared. The next one is going to take place on the 24th of February, so that's only a few weeks away. And Ned Rush has asked me to be the guest host. And we're going to have some absolutely fantastic musicians on there. So make sure that you check out More Kicks Than Friends for further details on when it's going to happen and take place, and you can listen in live on you. That will be on YouTube. There will be a live stream. You will be able to comment and chat to us while it is running. So you will hear some exciting new fresh music there too, with some stunning visuals that don't miss it. I should be commenting on the stuff that I am making on screen. Here I am. I've obviously taken the drums from this synth and chopped them up, sampled them in and chopped them up and spread them across the keyboard using the the simpler, is that what I am doing? Yes, that's what I am doing. So I'm just running that stuff through the, just making an interesting beat. Let's talk about the sounds of this synth. They are PCM samples. That was a term that I've heard before, but I never knew that it stood for pulse code modulation, which sounds pretty cool. It says that clearly on the synth, but I have never really thought about what it stood for in the past. So the sounds are, it consists of, there are 18 different single sounds, which is things like harpsichord and flute, etc. Then there is an additional button where there is a drum kit, which is the one that we are hearing here. And then there is also a bass section, which has a split keyboard, and half the keyboard is one bass sound and the other one is a different type of bass sound. What I'm going to do, I'm going to multi-sample this keyboard, let it do the pitching, and then I will make Ableton, I will make Ableton instruments out of it, or an Ableton instrument out of it, which will be like a digital version of this synth. Well, digital version, this is a digital synth, but a virtual version of this synth. And if you sponsor me on Patreon, you can enjoy your own Casiotone MT-240 if you want to, and see where you can take this synth. Would I recommend buying this for £3? Well, I think I had more fun and enjoyment with this than I would have with a £3 cup of coffee. So in that case, in that sense, yeah, I think it was worth the £3, but I wouldn't spend a huge amount of money on a synth like this. I've used it for playing, made a few tracks with just the synth, because it's been a good exercise just to see how far you can take a sound set like these. Each of the sounds, it seems to have some envelope running, because the string sounds and the flute, etc., they certainly have a sustain stage, and when you release the key there's a bit of a release, whereas other sounds, they just decay and then go to silence if you hold down the key. There is no way that I know of that you can affect this envelope, but I don't know if you could do that via circuit bending, because there is obviously some envelope action happening, and the envelope is slightly different for the different sounds depending on the type. And it's got MIDI. I think with today's software like Ableton, together with something like this, you can make some pretty amazing sounds. Not in this video, but I've also played around and managed to get some absolutely crazy Maurizio style dub techno chords out of it, with some compression and a bit of external filter with envelopes on them, etc. But I suppose it's more down to the effects combined with the lo-fi gritty samples in this machine. I hope I will come to my senses and stop this cacophony at some point. How often do you think about the Roman Empire? I hardly ever think about the Roman Empire, but it seems to crop up every now and then. Maybe that's the empire I hear the most about. I think more about food than I think about the Roman Empire. And there are certain times of day when I think more about food. But I would like to think less about food, generally. Food is good, isn't it? Like, I've been thinking about Thai food recently. I live in a very small town. There are some nice restaurants here, but you don't get much exotic stuff. You get decent English fare, good seafood, but not really good Thai food, or Vietnamese, or Korean, or Japanese, or anything like that. Some of these synth pads, I think they sound quite satisfying, and if you put a bit of a low pass filter on them, they sound pretty decent. And the gritty quality, I wonder how they were originally made. Could they have been made using the Casio CZ range, maybe? Because I assume they would have used their own machines to make the stock sounds for this synth. Let's talk about some labels and music. Do you know the label Peak Oil? I think they have some pretty amazing releases that they just got a vibe and a sound to them. I would say the artist that I am most impressed by is called Top Down Dialectic. I find the sound hard to describe and hard to capture somehow. I don't have any of Top Down Dialectic's vinyl releases. I have looked them up online and they pop up on YouTube, eBay and things, but they're very expensive. But who knows about Peak Oil? Who is Top Down Dialectic? Is the person or the people behind Top Down Dialectic, do they do stuff under a different name? Do you know anything about them? Please let me know, because I want to know more. I never knew how to capture that sound. I mentioned it a bit in my last video. There's something about certain vinyl releases that just have a particular quality to it, and maybe the vinylness has something to do with it, but I don't think it is entirely that, because some of those, when I find them on Spotify or something, they still have a magical quality to my ears. And it's the sort of thing that it doesn't feel like much more nearer the center of close. If you get only a couple of steps closer to mainstream, but no means mainstream, it sort of loses that magic. A lot of earlier electronic music, we mentioned Maurizio before, and some of the Detroit artists, and certainly some of the warp artists from the mid-90s had a particular vibe, and I think it's maybe too easy to attach that vibe to hardware alone. I think that adds a certain thing to it that is good, that helps that sound, but I don't feel that's entirely the full answer. If you do a lot of the mixing and mastering tutorials that you find online, you can get a much cleaner mix. But it also feels like it's further away from the vibe. And how do you capture the vibe? What is it? Because some of those recordings sound a lot less crisp and clean, but at the same time they don't sound muddy. But let's move on and look at some of the other artists that I also think are interesting. Someone called Keppel. I haven't looked up what label Keppel is on. It's Keppel. I'll try to remember to put links in the description. The other one is Nota Infinita. I don't know if you're meant to pronounce it like that. Also interesting sounding. There's quite a lot. Do you know what? Like, I make a Spotify playlist and I'll just drop a few tracks from some of these artists in there. It's not going to be the definite comprehensive list of really cool stuff. It's just going to be some stuff that I find interesting and that I would like to pull apart. Paperclip Minister sounds fairly close to Paperclip People, but this is much newer, I believe. When is this? From 2022. Have I listened to any 2024 releases? I don't think I have yet. I am still to discover. Some other artists like Marlin Genie, something, seems to have done quite a lot of different genres. There is an album called Anthropomorphic Sympathy, which I think is really well put together, very aspirational. I would say that would definitely fall under the IDM category, but then some of the releases are very much dub techno and not that, what shall I call it, baby food dub techno that seems to flourish everywhere. Some of these releases sound like there was something in there. I can't remember the name of the release now that just sounded like, I don't know, Basic Channel, Maurizio, Rhythm and Sound, something like that. I mean, it felt like it wouldn't feel out of place together with those, you know, in a set with those artists. But I'm also wondering why Marlin Genie is have such a diverse set of sounds. Why under that name, why is Marlin doing all that under the same moniker? Who is Marlin Genie? His stuff is very well put together. So is that a hobby side project of someone who is working in a studio doing completely different stuff? I don't know, that's just me speculating. And I'm scrolling through his discography on Spotify now, and I see that he's collaborated with someone called Per Hammar, which to me sounds very Swedish. Might not be, could be something else, but Per Hammar. Maybe Marlin Genie is Swedish as well. That certainly doesn't sound like a Swedish name. Well, Marlin is a girl's name in Sweden, but I've seen a picture of him and it does not look like a girl to me. But maybe I'm wrong in this day and age. Another artist is... Okay, let me just read this in my head before I try to spell it out. Akeyamasu. Akeyamasu. Sounds a bit Japanese. Akeyamasu has made an album called Seed, which is IDM towards the... perhaps more towards Automaton or something like that. It was released in 2023. I'm interested in what you are listening to, especially if it is something that is fairly fresh and new and does, well, it could sound like Automaton or Aphex Twin or something, but if it's something that is listenable yet experimental and feels fresh, I'm super interested. Even if it doesn't tick all those boxes, just let me know what you are listening to, and if you feel like there is an artist that, even though if it's not new and fresh, but you think, oh, I might just have missed that artist, why not give it a go? Please write some comments. Maybe, okay, I'm just thinking out loud now. I'm not going to promise this, but maybe I'll just chuck a few of the tracks into a shared playlist, and then I just share that playlist with you in the link in the description of this video. I'm not going to promise that, but if I do, alright, and then you can go in and add tracks to that list, and it can be a big collaborative repository of finding new music. A satisfying bass line. I can already hear that it doesn't quite fit with the bass line, but I'm more happy with this flute sound than I am with the bass. But let's quantize this because of my terrible playing. I think if I would have worked out this method of just taking a synth and doing multi-track recording like this in an easier manner, I think I would have developed as a musician much quicker. I think it's quite a fun way of working, and you don't necessarily need an audio interface with a huge amounts of inputs to be able to do something like this. I think it's time to go in and fix the bass line in hindsight. Obviously this is not the cleanest way of doing it, chopping up the sample and repitching parts of it, but that's what we got to work with, unless we want to go back and re-record it from scratch. But based on the type of music we're doing, we are not necessarily up for a pristine result. But I also can't remember at all what notes I played, so I will have to try to just do this by ear. I think the new flute pad melody is all in using the black keys, but I certainly didn't do that with this bass line. Let's merge all that, or consolidate rather. So many dud bits in there. Let's just fix another one. Nope, still not right. A bit more. I think now we are getting closer. There's still some things that are not quite right in there. Well, maybe we'll live with it. what do we need next? We need to twist that sound a bit more. This plugin is a free one, DLYM, and I think it's quite a nice plugin to... It's a delay plugin, but rather than for those big long echoes, you use them for really short ones, and I think it helps create quite a nice, interesting sound. And then on top of that, we can use some LFOs and modulate it a bit. I think some of the interesting ones is obviously the delay time, the feedback, and then it's got some built-in modulation, and to modulate the rate of that is nice, and the depth of that modulation. I think it is a delay that works well to add a little bit of flavor. Have you guys looked at NAMM this year? I saw something about this new physical modeling plugin called Atom that was released today by... Is it Baby Audio? Is that what they're called? I can't remember now. I think it's Baby Audio has released Atom, and it's simulating using a bow, as in a violin bow, but on a bunch of sort of a cluster of springs or something. I really like the idea of physical modeling, but I often don't like the sound they make. There's something, I don't know if it's the phase or what it is, that makes them sound odd. I would be curious to try a Nord drum, because I think that's physical modeling. And the same with there's a Eurorack module by, I think it's IntelliGel, who makes Plonk. I've never tried it, but I think that would be interesting to play around with. Otherwise, out of the software versions that I have tried, which is not a huge amount, it might be 3 or 4 that I've tried. One is called Chromophone, I think, which is considered to be a good one. I downloaded the demo and played around with it, and I felt like I couldn't get something out of it that I felt was exciting. I think the one that is the best one to my ears, that's the built-in one in Ableton, the Collision plugin. I've managed to get good sounds out of it, and especially if I force it to be mono, because otherwise there's just something, it just loses punch. And it's also something about physical modeling plugins where the tuning doesn't sound right to me. Okay, listen to this crappy kick from this synth, but with a bit of drum bass, all of a sudden we can add a bit of weight to it. Oh gosh, these drum samples are like, why the... Listen to those crashes or whatever they're meant to, with this strange modulation. Why? Some of them are really quiet. The balancing of the sound, you can't change the volume on the synth. So the hi-hats I found very, very loud, and then some of those sounds are just super quiet. I don't know why that is. I find it very difficult to get excited about these drum sounds. The kick sounds sort of alright with the drum bus, just adding a bit of weight to it. Strange selection of sounds. And now I think I realize that when you get too high up, the sounds are just repeating the last octave. A bit deceiving. I wonder if the synth converts certain MIDI notes to just an octave down if you start sending it notes that are too high up in the range. Let's Redux. I think it's an interesting plugin, but you have to be very careful because when you get values that are too low, it gets loud and quite unpleasant. But if you modulate and you just crush the bits a little, then it sounds quite nice. Oh, here is Automaton. Is that what it's called? Automata. It's Automaton, that's what it's called. It's a strange, interesting, sequenced, sort of glitch bit crushing effect that is made by Audio Damage, but it's part of their legacy pack, so it's free to use, and it mimics the Game of Life, I think it's called, where you have this matrix grid, and it's as if you have these bacteria dying and evolving and spawning all around, so you get this ever-growing sequence, and then you can add on this grid, you can add what type of effect, if you want a bit of bit crushing or warping. Sorry about the phone. What were we talking about? Automaton. I don't want to say anything more about it. I think you should just download it and check it out. If you are after some buffer shuffling, bit crushing experience and you don't want to spend any money. Wonder how difficult it is to change the sound set of this synth. Let's just own those splash samples. Those hi-hats, no. Maybe those hi-hats should be recorded separately so you can set the volume okay, and actually maybe soften them a bit. Put a bit of high-pass filter on, or maybe a bit of attack so they're not so... I don't know. Strange. They don't feel right. And those splash drums. Maybe we should just try and own them. I can already feel that I'm not in love with those hi-hats. Why don't I just cut my losses and get rid of them now rather than later? We will see what I do, but maybe you wish to jump forward a few minutes before I come to the realization that I should just ditch them. But when I give you my Patreon pack, they will come as they are, and you can do whatever you like with them. Maybe you love those horrid hi-hats. Maybe you can turn them into something absolutely stunning. As far as I'm aware, eBay is not really used in Sweden. I think they use a website called Blocket and another one called Vend. There's also a shop in Stockholm called Jam that sell used gear. You can find some quite interesting things on there. I had a look the other day, and some things are certainly more expensive than over here, but some things are the other way around. And they had some quite desirable pieces. So maybe check out Jam. Is it jam.se? Anyway, I'll find it and I'll put the link in the description. Now, is this the dullest video you have ever listened to? Is it the night radio talking about nothing that you were never looking for? Alright, here we can see I'm compensating again for the latency by chopping off a little bit of the sample. I don't know if you can hear in the background, but it's raining. It feels like it's Sunday, but it isn't Sunday here. It's perfect, depressing February weather. Okay. What I'm doing there is to split the signal in upper and lower frequencies so I can keep the bass in mono if that's what I'm doing, and then I can add effects to spread it out in the stereo spectrum but higher up. That can help to maintain a bit of punch in your sound. I would like you to ask you another thing. Last year I did a series of interviews with people in the electronic music scene, and I intend to do more of those. But are there any people or artists that you think I should pursue? Please write to me in the comments and let me know of interesting people. This could be musicians, it could be instrument creators, maybe someone from a record label, something like that. Who would you like to hear speak? This DLYM plugin, I think it sounds good. It's free, plugin boutique, you can find it there. I'll put a link to that too in the description. I don't know why I just don't kill this track now, because it is annoying. Maybe I've finally decided to just ditch those. Keep the kick and that, I don't know what drum that is, a little drum. Keep that, and then you add the original drums back, the ones that were running in the simpler and running at a much higher pitch and were a bit glitchier. That could work well together with this. There we go, that sounds pretty good. I've sort of run out of things to say really, so I am going to shut up for the rest of this video, which is probably a relief to you, and let this just play till the end. I hope you had a good day, and if you feel able to, please check out my Patreon and other links in the description. Thank you very much for hanging in there for this long. This is the fellow passenger, and hope to see you again in the next video. Bye.